So I've been talking about this one for a while, man, and heading into the weekend, it seemed like a fun time to look at my custom Liege Maximo using the Studio Series, I think it's 76, thrust. And it's strange. As I started doing this, I realized two things. One, I had to do very little work, which was great. But two, in looking at different iterations of the Liege Maximo, I wanted to kind of come up with a bit of an amalgamation and a little bit of a stylization that was all my own. So while I had to do minimal work, what I ended up with is kind of an homage to a couple of different versions of the guy. We're going to see how it turned out, because he's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot True review. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light them up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that, man, in the description down below. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring. Or, of course, you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. And like I said, we're going to be looking at my custom Liege Maximo. Now, I have been trying to amass a version of the 13 for quite some time. And indeed, depending on the continuity that you're going with, one could argue that I have 13 primes. I very much tend to defer to the Covenant of Primus. So I do have a couple of outliers, but I would very much like to have kind of the cardinal quintessential 13 from the Covenant. And one of the ones that across all continuities sort of never gets cast aside is the Liege Maximo. One of the biggest dangers, perhaps the biggest danger, though a lot of people see Megatronus as that. I would argue that Megatronus was manipulated by the Liege Maximo, but whatever. That being said, when I was trying to think about how I would tackle this, a lot of people suggested something like the Sparkless Seeker. That's an option. Or something like Acid Storm. That's an option, but it's not what I wanted to use. While the Liege Maximo tends to be closely associated with the Seekers as like a forerunner to that body type, I wanted something that was sort of uniquely his own. So I took the Studio Series thrust and we added a cape, and we added a couple of shoulder-like pieces, and a little bit of paint, a couple of horns. You know what? How about I stop talking about it and we head over to the table and take a closer look at this guy. And yes, indeed, here we have my custom, highly stylized version of Liege Maximo. As soon as I saw the Studio Series version of thrust, I said, man, I see the green, I see the Seeker homage, which apparently the Liege Maximo is like the forerunner to the Seeker body type, the Seeker personality type. You know, that Starscream sort of body type and personality type. I could see it here. The green was there. The body type was there, but it needed just a few little things. One, his cape. Now, I would have preferred his cape in green, but there is precedent for it being in gray. Next, his green palette. Sometimes he is a dark, almost like muted type of green. Sometimes he's bright greens. I have a mix of both here. The thing that is consistent is that his head seems to have a mix of black and green on it. Sometimes his face is a silver color, sometimes it's a blue color. Sometimes you can't really see his face because it's kind of buried back deep and you just see like a shadow there and the green out around. He tends to have two horns on his head, which I've done. He tends to have two horns kind of down on his jaw. Nice, as a nice accident here, I suppose, or a happy coincidence, the lower part of the face of these Seekers actually do have two kind of parts that stick out. So I just had to color those green and I called that good. Then we get to these pieces here. Sometimes they are up and sort of sticking out, and sometimes they're more down on his shoulder. I considered either fitting these pieces in on the front or down on the top. I decided not to do the top because the arm, if I done on the top of the arm, sorry, if I done up on, okay, if I done on the top of the green, then the green piece doesn't move, his shoulder does, so it would have been a hindrance to his arm. If I put it in the front or the top of his arm, you know, the shoulder piece that does move, then it would have hindered the transformation, which he still can pull off in a, you know, a bit of a weird way now, right? But he can still certainly pull it off. So I opted to take a bit of a different stance. This is a little bit more of an homage to the coronation look of Starscream with these kind of pauldrons up higher. So while I have his cape sort of down over his shoulders, the intention generally for me will be to have that part of the cape back and this part of the cape back, and this will basically be how the Liege Maximo will look for me. And if you are inclined to want to see the back, there is the back. I like, this works for me. Why does this work for me? Because, and you'll notice I didn't paint those pieces there. That's fine. I'm going to probably leave that as like just like energon detail in his body. I like the look of it, but like I opted to do this because there's no way that you're going to get a perfect homage to the Liege Maximo, because he has a number of looks to him, like these. As such, I took some inspiration from all of those and sort of done my own take a little bit, really kind of thinking about what sort of cues I could have here that would be homages to Seekers. The coronation look kind of ties in with Starscream a little bit. By the way, these can move and rotate, and you can sort of do what you want with them. Again, the wings out on the side, a Seeker look. The cockpit out front, I thought about painting that gray, but you know what? No, I think I'm going to leave it. I absolutely dig the fact that all the articulation here is exactly the same as it was. The head is still pretty limited, but can go left and right a little bit. The arms, they can still move all the way around as they did before. Can go out to the side. We still have our elbow and our bicep swivel and nothing at the wrist. We still have the mobility, if you pick that piece up, at the waist, little bit anyway. The legs, they can still go forward, they can still go back as much as they did and out to the side, and our knee bend and our ankle tilt. So everything is still there and intact from the thrust mold, which is honestly a tremendous mold. I love it. Now arguably some people would say, hey, maybe this green and the green on his head should be darker, more like what's on his forearms and his shins. I get that. I honestly, absolutely, probably kind of agree with you. But I wanted it to tie into the upper shoulders more and like the section around the cone a bit. Now some people would also cut the cone off. You could do that. I didn't opt to do it, but that's not to say that I won't if I find that it's enough of a hindrance and a nuisance to me. I didn't need to do a lot here. So what did I do? Well, luckily I have the MMC Salvia Promenade, and she came with a couple of, I'll say, hood pieces that's meant to go with the Paradron Medic. So what I did is, on the shoulder pauldrons here and here, the Seeker pauldrons, I drilled, using the Dremel, I drilled a little hole that I was able to put these pegs into, and now these pegs are able to move around, and they can even fold up straight and become pauldrons if you want. Like if you thought to yourself, I don't want this look, I want them straight up, you can do that. We'll see that kind of when I show like what we have for the alt mode. The cape, I just have a little slit in 2 holes of this fabric, and it's slid down over the pauldrons. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to remove the cape or if I can leave it on for transformation yet, because I haven't done it with the cape on. But I'll let you know. The head is just the Seeker head. I drilled a couple of very small holes, and using glue, I had a couple of antennae that were left on a broken Thrilling 30 version of Waspinator. So I took those couple of little antennae and cut them shorter, and I glued them on and then bonded them around, and I painted the head with green and black, and I used a mix to make a gunmetal gray, a mix of graphite and black to do the antenna pieces. Here's the head up closer. You know, you have a lot of green, but it's still flanked with black. That's the way I did the horns, but I mean, there's a million ways that you could do horns, I'm sure. It depends on what sort of look you are going for, but it works for me. And while I forgot to take the hand blaster that works as like his stabilizer down, like on the bottom of him in plane mode, this is the plane mode with the extra bits involved. There's plenty of room for the customized head to store up, and the two shoulder pieces just rotate up to become the new shoulder pylons. As for the cape, I did find that I had to remove the cape, which is easy because it just slides up from over the pylons. I don't know, lay it aside, put extra couple of holes in it so it could go over maybe these couple of pieces or some such thing. I guess you could also sort of store it inside because there is a big cavity in there, but yeah, for me, I had to remove the cape. If you found a different, better way to do it, cool, but like, he still transforms fine, you know, no problem at all. Very, very happy with this, but of course, for me, the pièce de résistance here is gonna be this. Before we get to the pièce de résistance for me, I did want to show this. This is if you had like the shoulder pieces left up as the pauldrons on his, you know, on his robot mode. I mean, you could do that. It still looks very Seeker-ish. It really depends on if you have these pieces. Do you need these pieces? No, absolutely not. Honestly, you could do a little bit of work on the head and you could put a cape on and leave the shoulders the way they are and it would honestly be fine. And I've seen some tremendous work done with the like Siege Seeker mold, either using the Sparkless Seeker or the version that is Acid Storm. There's arguments for it. It's just, for me, they were too much like all of my other Seekers. That's why I opted for this route. Okay, now for that pièce de résistance. And yes, this is my pièce de résistance. My Dynasty of the Primes, if you will. The original 13 is usually what we talk about, but I have more than 13 here because depending on the continuity, sometimes there are different characters that are part of this lineage. Sometimes, for example, Sentinel Prime has been a part of this lineage. Sometimes we have Salamis and Epistemus. I'm not worried about them. I tend to defer to the Covenant for the most part. So we have Alpha Trion represented by the Titan's Return Alpha Trion. We have let's see, Amalgamus Prime, represented by a customized version of the Revenge of the Fallen. We have a customized Quintus made from the Cyberverse Quintuson. We have Optimus, who tends to be the 13th Prime, but sometimes he's not. Sometimes 13 has been the last Autobot, or Autonomous Maximus, or I guess Autonomous Prime, if you will. So, you know, there's a variation of 13. Sometimes we also include he who is more adept at controlling time than even Vector Prime, and that is Logos Prime, represented by the 35th anniversary Sound Blaster. I even made a custom Hell Buzzsaw to go with him. Behind Optimus we have the Make Toys Chaos Paladin. He is my version of the Fallen himself, Megatronus Prime. We have Salvia Promenon standing as Solus Prime. We have the BAF of Macadam, who is Alchemist Prime, and in front of him the Titan Master Micronus as Micronus. We have the Protoform Optimus Prime, which has been retconned to be Prima. And behind him we actually do have Vector Prime with Safeguard, and then my custom Nexus Prime. And of course, smack dab in the middle of all of them now we have the Liege Maximo. The only real one now conspicuous by his absence is Onyx. Now a lot of people have said, use the Transformers Prime Predaking as Onyx. And you could do that, but to me that's iconic as Prime Predaking. Plus, Onyx is supposed to have 4 legs. So, I got a couple of ideas and I'm working on a version of it, but this is my lineage and I'm generally pretty darn happy with it. The most, perhaps, stylized is Liege Maximo, but I think it works. At least it does for me. I can't really give it a score because obviously I'm going to be very biased and say, hey, it's a great Liege Maximo, I'm giving it like a 9. It really depends on what it is you're going for. But you know what? With the head with the horns and the shoulder pauldrons and his cape, you know what? I think he can stand in as the liar and the trickster among the primes very well. And here we are once again with my version of the Liege Maximo. It is not what I originally kind of anticipated or intended. I did make a couple of changes to it. The head and the horns are, like I said, they are part of antenna that was on the chest, basically. Thrilling 30 Waspinator, I cut it off, I cut them shorter. They are painted a gunmetal gray. The head has black and green on it, right, like I said. The head wasn't really functional on this thrust anyway because of the cone, but it's as functional as it ever was. I struggled where to put these extra pieces. I was lucky enough to have those pieces because of Salvia Promenon, and I thought to myself for a long time, what am I going to do with these extra pieces? I don't have their, what is it, MMC? Yeah, MMC? I think it's MMC. Paradron Medic that they go with, so what am I going to do with them? This seemed like a good idea. I originally intended for them to be more on the shoulders, but in order to retain all functionality and transformation, I thought, why not just make the shoulder, like pauldrons, look a little bit different? And as I started manipulating these around, because they can go up and down and out and flip all around, I thought to myself, why not angle them up a little bit? It looks a little bit like Starscream's coronation get up, just a touch. And maybe that's all the Liege Maximo needs, is just a touch to give that homage to the Seekers. I like how he turned out as stylized as he is, drawing inspiration from a few different iterations of the character. This is not the be-all end-all. I have seen people do great things with, you know, like versions that don't transform at all, with things like the Sparkless Seeker and whatnot. So like there's options out there, man. The Last Night Megatron, popular mold to use for the Liege Maximo. So there's a lot that a lot of people could do. This was minimal. This was easy. And this works for me. Let me know what you think about this guy. I appreciate you, or thrust for that matter. I appreciate you coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube. Become a channel member, baby. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel. Don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you right there, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time, baby, that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres or the old fashioned way, baby, right here inside the videos.